I'm intrigued as to how you measure success. So
Yeah.
I would assume, and correct me where I'm wrong, the founders of these businesses, they're often extremely technical and they've built some kind of innovation that they are running a business engineering a product. And so maybe they're a product manager, which makes them a little more commercial. And maybe they're an ex consultant from KPMG sitting next to someone super engineering heavy. Whatever the blend might be, they're running a business. And that means find a customer, solve their problem by building something to solve it. That doesn't necessarily mean do the podcast round or watch what's trending on Twitter on a Monday morning. And that's
Yeah.
obviously where you can come in. But is it fair to say then that you sell exposure for the
That's
business?
that's a good way. Let me write that down real quick.
Yeah,
You
because it
tell people,
strikes me that
yeah, it is. It is.
if I was to sell sponsor contracts for this podcast at some point in the future, that's how I would frame it. In that I have digital real estate that I could sell to someone for attention, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be putting something in a Twitter bio or a banner in a YouTube video or you name it, right, or an ad read in the middle of a podcast episode. But ultimately, it's just exposure for a brand, and there's plenty of brands out there that want more exposure. But in a PR sense, how do you manage that with metrics?
Yeah.
You can say by signing up with me, I got you this much attention.
It's a really great question, and I love the framing that you use there as well. PR is traditionally a very hard thing to quantify, right? So,
Hmm.
just for instance, what do you value a mention in the Wall Street Journal more than a feature story, of 800 words in like a CoinDesk or another outlet that's not at the Wall Street Journal's level? So a lot of that is identifying those types of goals. Okay, where do you want to be? Mainstream media, what outlets? Let's
Hmm.
define that. Why do you want to be in there? Like,
Yeah, who's your customer essentially?
who's the
Yeah.
customer? Like, so identifying all that stuff. But and you also have to look at competitors. I mean, everything is relative to who you're competing against as well, right?
Mm.
So I think of it in terms of not just selling exposure, but in terms of increasing mind share, right? How top
Mm.
of mind are you in relation to the competitors
Great.
in the industry, right? And then a lot of what I do, is looking at competitive analysis, like, okay, or what publications is this company getting in, or not, right? And kind of stacking it up that way and being really transparent. When it all comes down to it, it's about, closing more deals, right? Getting more customers. So it's very complementary with marketing. A lot of the time I do work with, founders, but probably 50-50. The other 50%, like I'm working directly with the marketing person, and I mean, it's either way is good with me, but it is really gratifying to hear from the marketing directors and the VPs of marketing how what we've done supports all their initiatives, right? And kind of gives them an extra boost. And so when you have that relationship with the VP of marketing, and I've have gotten some great feedback about the deals that they've closed, that they feel that can be directly attributed to some of the wins that we've landed in podcasts or,
Oh, great.
coverage and stuff like that. And just hearing, I mean, that's like the ultimate uh, metric, right? And it doesn't you don't always get that feedback, but hearing that is just one of the most gratifying things.
Well, and it can be really hard. I mean, again, to use the
Yeah,
podcasting lens, I can see if someone's viewed a YouTube clip and I can see potentially the macro, like what country were they in, what age were they, what sex were they. But
yeah,
like I can't contact them with an email. And I have no idea if that view ended up on a website that I want them to get to, unless they clicked a link in the show notes, in which case I can track that traffic. But they might actually see a piece of brand. I think a common statistic is that it requires you to have seen a brand 7 times before you buy.
yeah.
I think
I've
that's the
heard.
right number. Like, so 7 touch points, you have to come across something. And so it's all of it combined that creates the customer flow and actual decision to buy. So yeah, even with good like viral video content data saying I can give you this many eyeballs on your brand at the end of or as part of this podcast exposure process, but I still cannot necessarily say I drove this many people to your website and these people all bought, because you can't. And the same obviously applies with the PR stuff.